Hey guys, really quick video for you. Probably no visual things to go along with this video today. I do want to talk about FOMO, which is that fear of missing out. I mean, you know this better than I do, right? I'm just an old guy. FOMO has been one of those words that's become really popular recently, you know, with all the stuff happening with cryptocurrency and people talking about, you know, the reason why people act in kind of irresponsible in an irresponsible sense, and why people are running around crazy buying a bunch of stuff they shouldn't, why people have big collections of this and that and whatever else. Now, I'm going to tell you, FOMO, you can go find somebody else who's going to talk to you about the psychology behind it. When it comes to Football Manager, FOMO is real, but I'm not talking this time about FOMO about like, I really want to sign this particular young player and I'm going to ignore everybody else and make some video that's really popular telling people that there are no left backs in the game or that there are no goaltenders or whatever. I mean, whatever. You know, there are other reasons why like that sort of thing could happen. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the FOMO that comes along when you're part of the way through a save and then you go over onto FM Scout or you go onto the official forums, you go onto one of the other pages that give you choices for different user-created editor files, even on the Steam Workshop, and you see something that looks really new and shiny, and you're like, oh man, you know, I should have started that. That's the save I should have done. What am I doing playing this awful save? I should switch right over, you know, and stuff like that. Now, I want to warn you about this because you've got to be careful. If you have a project going, my advice is to stick with it. We see these posts all the time, especially on the official forums where people come around and talk about like, oh man, you know, how is it that you guys are able to stay with a save for long enough? You know, I find myself bouncing from one to the next and this is okay, but oh, I really want to do that and that's okay, but I really want to do this other thing and all this other stuff. Look, I'm going to tell you, I've tried doing it before, right? I have tried back again, 2021. There was a period of time in which I had multiple Football Manager saves going on at once. And the idea was that every single day I would play with a different save. This is part of how I became hopelessly addicted to the game. It's a pain. You forget about things, especially if you've been in your save for several in-game years. You forget about stuff like when you start a new save that you got to figure out, like what are you going to do with your staff? Are you just going to keep everybody? Do you even want to care about staff? Do you want the computer to do all that stuff? What are you going to do with training? You're going to download a training schedule. You're going to say, screw you to that. I'm just going to let the assistant do it. Or you're going to come up with your own. You know, you got to worry about like your players. You got to go through the whole rigmarole of transfers, selling players, buying new players, and doing stuff like that. I've noticed as I've played around with Football Manager that if you do the same save with the same team, you can usually make the same thing happen with transfers in each individual save, right? It'll usually be, if not exactly the same, pretty close because of however it is that the game's programmed. I don't know. I'm not, you know, I don't have any inside knowledge about how all this stuff works. And so as a result, you can find yourself feeling really, really bored. You can feel like every single time you play through it that parts of the game are scripted and that, well, this is the same here as it was there and all of this other stuff. Now, I'll tell you, the way to get rid of this problem and the way to stop it is to avoid the FOMO. Now, I think you should look on the editor forum. You know, I think you should look on FM Scout and see what's new and what's coming up. But don't throw away your current save just because there's something nice that came along, right? It's just like, guys, you know, when you have a relationship, you got your girl or your wife, you know, or if you're like me, you have children. You know, the fact that you see some pretty young thing, you know, down the street wearing a short skirt doesn't mean that you're like, okay, well, forget this. I'm going to go after that. Let's see if it's any better over there, right? Like the truth is that, you know, what you're doing and what you're building probably means something to you deep down inside. Don't just abandon it because something new and flashy comes along. I mean, you wouldn't do this like normally in your life, right? Would you really be like, I don't know, working at a job and say, oh, I've been here for like a year and that job I think might be a little bit better. Let me just hop over to that one. And then a year later, let me hop to this next one. I mean, who wants to live like that? Why do you want to do that? Don't play Football Manager like that. Instead, take your time, enjoy your save, and get yourself deep down into the save and deep down into the storyline. What you'll find at the end is that it's much more meaningful for you, especially when or if you ultimately have success, and you'll be a lot happier in the end, right? Instead of running around chasing after something that you don't even know if it exists or not, some sort of feeling or joy or something like that, go slow, take your time, enjoy other things in life, enjoy what it is that you have, and be happy that you have something to look forward to once your current save is done. Now, there's another problem that we have that we should talk about, another type of FOMO, which comes around every time the new game comes, right? You see this all the time. All the YouTube creators, all the content people will be like, oh, it's FM24. Well, screw FM23, right? I'm going with the new stuff. We're going to do nothing but FM24. This save as fast as we can, that save as fast as we can, and all that stuff. This is a problem because many of these people miss out on the best part of the Football Manager series, which usually comes out in the summer before the new game comes along. That's where you see the much more experienced editor data people coming out with their own content. That's where you'll see the more epic, types of save environments, like different saves you can go in and try to make things better, or, completely new ways of looking at the world and stuff like that. It's right around this time that the stuff starts coming around. You want to give yourself the time to sit down and play with it a little bit. And I, for one, think it's probably okay if you end up being a little bit late to the party for FM24 or maybe even FM25, depending on what type of save it is that you run. Because the important thing here, you got to realize, is not necessarily keeping up with the Joneses and being there with all the latest and greatest and whatever it is Sports Interactive has come out with. No, the most important thing is the storyline that the game's creating and that immersion that you have in the overall experience. You don't want to take that lightly. Don't just throw it away because you see something new, or you see something that's, fresh, or it's a new idea or whatever. And it just might be that the new thing's not really that great. I'll put it to you this way, right? When I was in high school, there was a girl I knew who looked really, really pretty. I thought she looked pretty. And I knew a bunch of her friends too. And I asked them about her. I was like, yeah, so what's up with this girl? And they would tell me, they say, oh, you should see what she's like, right after she wakes up in the morning at like a sleepover or whatever. They're like, her face is like 100% like painted on, right? This girl was like 100% makeup, very little substance. Well, I mean, that's also the way you've got to think sometimes about your Football Manager saves and projects. You want to have a project that has some good substance to it. You don't necessarily just want something that's flashy, because sometimes when you do the real flashy thing, you'll find that the substance is kind of lacking and it's not quite as good or quite as much fun as you thought it was. My recommendation, as always, is to go for well-known creators of editor data files who have good track records, who are known for creating high-quality products. We'll talk about more of these in the future as we go over different editor files that are out there and stuff you might be thinking about. Don't do what I did with this one, right? Don't just download some random Chinese thing from the Steam Workshop and be like, ha, 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 and then realize that you click on the China national team, it'll crash your save and make you feel really upset, right? You don't want to do that. What you want is something that is well designed by somebody who knows what they're doing, who has a lot of experience, and who knows how to carefully and slowly create the game. And honestly, the best stuff will come around, like I said, around this time of year, around the summer. That's where you'll get the stuff that you will never forget. Anyway, that's it for me. Long story short, avoid the FOMO of editor files. Instead of jumping for the newest and greatest looking thing, let's go slow, man. Let's enjoy what it is that we have already, and let's see where we can go with that. I will talk to you later on. See you tomorrow. Bye.